Hello, everyone. Welcome to another discussion of Peril's Gate. This is the sixth book in the Wars of Light and Shadow. We're talking about chapters 11 to 13, and I'm trying really hard not to get distracted by all the book swiping across the screen.
Uh,
um, today's discussion is going to be lots of fun, but before we get into it, I'll let everyone introduce themselves. Jared, would you like to start?
sure. I am Jared. I run a Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel, and I am on the podcast Speculative Speculations with a couple of these fine folks here, including Chris.
Thank you. My name's Chris Mullen. I run the Chronicle of Chris YouTube channel. I'm also on that Speculative Speculations podcast and on Page Tune as well. Who's next? Chibipo.
I am Chibipo. I run the Chibipo's Library Twitter, where I just retweet a bunch of stuff, from other people, and occasionally talk. And then I lurk around on not Peril's Gate forums, the Page Chewing forums. They both start with P. Don't blame me.
Hi guys, my name's Matt, also known as Miggins. I run the Hobbit Hole Books Twitter page and usually lurking around on the Page Sharing forum and Under the Radar Blazers Discord, talking about Wars of Light and Shadow.
Nice. So we start this chapter. Oh my god! So I was counting. I read on my Kindle this time, and each chapter was 2.5 hours long. So I've listened to some audiobooks recently that were that a total of 8 hours long or 6 hours long. So it's like reading an entire book. So I do not remember where we started. Chibipo, would you like to tell us, or anyone else who has a better memory than I do?
I'm on the next book already.
All right. So for chapter 11, which is Nightfall, we start off with Jarrett finally coming out of his drug-induced, stupor from his previous experience, and he starts sort of spirit walking and sees his sight sees some stuff that's going to happen, while the setup that Davian had implemented to give Jarrett the ability to act plays out with the spirit raven coming to him and opening the door for him to take action, which results in one of the best moments of this book.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there are many, so it's not just the best, but
Yeah. So the raven was a spirit raven, and was that sent specifically by Davian, or was it?
Whatever it was he did, set it up to I believe it's Trace Raven, or the spirit that you'd be used, Trace Raven, to call it to Jarrett's side, and
Oh, okay. Trace Raven called the Jarrett side.
Yeah,
I got it now. Yep, got it. Yeah, and then that raven kind of woke him up with the, let him have a little visions and kind of got his power going.
Yep.
Yeah, that was very cool stuff.
Much like Earthen sworn to the land, the Kathleen is too, and well, we'll get to that part.
I was going to say I was really hopeful at that part, that especially with the spirits being awakened, I was like, oh, maybe there is more to Jarrett's story coming here. It kind of gave me that kind of bit of a high rise to say, actually, okay, we've sort of written him off at this stage, but maybe.
Yeah, you're right, Chris. That was the hope. I mean, that was the hope. I have a feeling that Basha is crushed right now, but
yes, she is.
Because that was definitely the hope that wow, okay, this guy, even though he's been through the ringer, torture, had his tongue cut out, all this stuff, but now you have this new dimension to his persona and his abilities, and you're like, okay, maybe this is like a new chapter on his life, and
It was a bit three-eyed raven, like that's where I kind of saw it going. He was going to be almost a seer. Damn.
But you're getting my
Maybe.
hopes up that we'll see Jared back. Stop getting my hopes up that we'll see Jared back.
I haven't completely written him off, I have to say.
See, neither did I. I messaged Janny. I was like, oh, I was kind of expecting, a better kind of send off. I was hoping for something. I didn't even kind of clock that was sort of the end for now. And then I was like, oh, I was kind of expecting him to like come back, maybe in like a keyboard sort of thing. But Janny never does the same thing twice, as she likes to
That's
say.
right. Yeah, that's very, very true.
I mean, I'm hoping that we see him like spirit walking and communicating with everyone. But that last send off with his daughter, where he tells her, "You're the cat stain now." I suppose he can't be a spirit cat stain, so she needs to be crowned or whatever the equivalent is. But that felt pretty final. And
But if he was dead, he wouldn't be peering in front of Jensa. Like, he would just be dead.
That's true. But see,
Maybe.
Arathon's racked with grief and Ilera on his behalf. And maybe his compassion makes it so that even if there's a possibility that you see him in spirit form, that he would still be pretty upset. But I don't know, his grief felt pretty final. Everything feels pretty final. So while I agree that it does feel like there's more to it than what we saw here, I don't want to get my hopes up, is all I'm saying.
Just
Well, it's
go ahead.
go
Matt.
on, Chris.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, is he? I mean, what are we sort of defining dead by? Because in my sort of head, he's passed beyond the veil. So there's this physical death, but in terms of sort of spirituality and spiritual death, I don't think we've actually almost seen a spiritual rebirth almost.
Yes.
So I am still holding on that there's still maybe he may be dead in the world of Aethera, but he's not dead.
So
But maybe that's just me being crazy.
Spirit has passed beyond to Aethera, and you're being very good there, Matt, since you've read through 14 to 17. You know a certain thing about
I'm putting them on the wrong path.
Dad, Matt.
not
involving Garrett, but
okay. So there's a
not directly anyway, but.
There used to be an old UK TV show called Through the Keyhole that Matt may have seen, and they used to come to a point. The whole point of the thing was they had to guess who the celebrity's house was. Right, it might be in America as well. But Lloyd Grossman, who used to present, you say, "Let's look at the evidence." Right, so the evidence for Jarrett not being dead. There's that whole thing where he goes through in a spirit walk where he's told that only he can decide the end point of his life. It's made another one of those kind of very big points of it. So that to me basically says he didn't choose the time of his death, or basically he was run through with a sword. He's still kind of within there. He was taught how to spirit walk before his death, kind of giving him sort of powers and rebirth just before he disappeared from the world. And the fact that he was technically dead and he was able to appear to other people, I think he's almost, I mean, if you want any more faith in that, just watch Star Wars: A New Hope, Varsha, right?
Okay.
There's a main character dies in that, but he's not actually dead.
Well,
so I watched Star Wars: A New Hope to give myself new hope about Jim.
Indeed.
Well,
there you go.
The one thing that I would, speculate on, right? So, we know someone dies, their spirit, passes beyond the veil to Aethera. And I know I'm not pronouncing that exactly correct. So, but here's an important question. Is it a one-way trip? Do we know?
Once he passes beyond.
Once you pass beyond, can you come back?
I mean, that centaur came back, didn't he? The one that Jared called on. He said he was roving the plains of Atlaria or something to that effect.
Oh, did he? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because that's the centaur. Ooh, I missed that. He's passed had already passed beyond the veil.
And one final thing, the centaur does say you killed one casting. We'll see what happens when you try and kill a second one.
And apparently, okay, so, and that's the other question I have. If Jared is not, in fact, dead or spiritually dead, then we still see from some of the news items that Lysair killed him by piercing a sword through his heart. And so, does that come under the purview of the centaur's punishment, or did it? What was the phrasing of that? Was it you have the blood of one Catane, and if you get another one, because then this would technically count.
The blood of one Kaifden stains your hands already. Woe betide you for the price you shall pay if you dare to murder another.
So that has to count as murder, regardless of how we define death. Piercing a sword.
To some extent, but it's said somewhere. I don't know if it's here that the what's done to him though is just by this point it wasn't the sword that kills him. Basically just kills an empty husk at that point. He'd already up spirit wise, yeah.
We know that, but did Lysair know that? And does the
intent
matter here?
The Pravians obviously would know. Also, my favorite: beware, should you challenge my living relations, even bearing the blood of crown lineage, you shall not stand in defiance before them. If I'm like, yes, I want more Pravians because they're just gonna be like, yeah.
That whole section was just gold.
I'm not sure I do want more Pravians, to be honest, because they're pretty vengeful. I'm kind of scared. I kind of want them, but I also don't want the consequences of them.
Yeah.
Well, they definitely, well, like I said, that's one of the things to be very considerate about is, what's everybody's, motivations. We know what the sorcerers want, which is the Pravians returned, because it's, better for the long-term survival of the planet, but, that may not necessarily.
What does that mean for humans? So that's the thing.
To humans' benefit.
And this was just a centaur from the past,
just a shade. It wasn't even
not even the full-blown living centaur.
So how does that work? So he's like from the past, but he's talking like it's not just like it's like a recording playing. He's actually responding in the present. But then I suppose if he's beyond the veil, then he's kind of outside time.
In response to Jared,
call for help. And it's in a place and venue that he has some resonance in already from being there. You've got to imagine. So he's already part of that Daon Ramon.
Daon Ramon, yeah, right.
Yeah, if I it's mentioned back in when he talks about the Severnir and the damming of the the river and all. And how the Atarans, did that to render Daon Ramon a wasteland, basically. But yeah, this prior to that, it was pretty much just a glorious place, and the unicorns lived and bred there.
Unicorns.
So it's a place humanity's not supposed to be for important reasons.
It's Athlearia.
Yeah.
The glossary.
I'm pretty sure that's what Chibi said. I'm going to give him the benefit of
that. I'm just pronouncing it entirely correctly. That's
Slow two things.
I'm eating ice cream, so that's the sound you hear if you hear it.
One of the interesting questions, actually, back to something you said earlier on. You're right that the Fellowship's one role is to keep Earth. It's most of the same letters, to be perfectly honest. Let's be honest. To keep it ready so that the Peruvians can return and for the return of the Peruvians. But am I right in saying that that does not necessarily include Davian at the moment, because we don't know what Davian's ultimate goal is and whether that lines up with that at all? So again, there's another wild card thrown in here on the side of different things.
It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny that
he's acted outside, the will of the majority of them. but he is still, even in light of that, he's still bound by the restriction of the Drakes, which is to, as we learned in Grand Conspiracy, is to ensure Paravian survival at all costs.
Yeah, so he's Team Paravia. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we absolutely know that at this point? Like, was it said that he's no longer bound somewhere, or he is still bound somewhere?
He is still bound. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no question of that. It would take
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure it would take either them fulfilling their goal or and ensuring Paravian survival.
yeah. Well, I guess my question is, if that's the case, he's just a betrayer because he just wants to do it his own way. Then is what I'm trying to gather.
Exactly. Yeah.
More to come.
So he
Okay,
says,
Matt.
You changed, Matt. See, that's being honest. Changed you. Changed. Yeah.
By the end of the book, you'll have more information on that. Plus, into Trader's Knot, as but
hey, what about reading chapters ahead? Where we are?
Chapters? Don't you mean books?
Let's be real. If we want to talk reading chapters ahead, I am, I have long since violated that.
Well, yeah, but
none of you are on my level.
you were a condition coming in, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, we have the full spread here with the people that have read way ahead, with the people that have read a bit ahead, and the people that are nowhere near caught up with us at the moment.
Yep, as you know, today's discussion will only be on chapter 11 because that's as far as
Oh no!
I forgot to say so at the beginning. My bad.
Well, there is so much here that you could just talk about chapter 11
big,
or just that centaur scene.
Yeah,
There's so much, even about Lysaeo, right? When there's this moment of intimacy where we get this insight into Lysaea, where we learn about, in the private moments he's just weeping, and that really kind of got to me, that he's kind of carrying this burden alone for his lost love, Talith, and he just doesn't want anyone to see that, and that really got to me. He's not just like this projection that he puts on, he's still human.
There was that very interesting scene as well when the centaurs confronting him and basically saying, you're affected by the curse. And he says things, and again, I'm totally paraphrasing, but the idea that can't be true because my soul I don't think could withstand that what I've been done was not honorable or was not the right thing to do. So he has to believe that he's doing the just and right thing. And it's almost like completely tragic in a way that he's so far down the line that he literally has no other option but to believe that he's not affected by the mystery.
Yeah,
I think
there's a
go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I think his perspective there is kind of like, people that go, well, I'm not 100% certain. I'm like 90% certain, but I just can't risk that 10% certainty, because if I'm wrong, think about all the things that I could have stopped if I was right and I turned away from that. It's that, I may be wrong, but I can't. If I'm right, then I'd rather choose that and be wrong than turn away and it turns out I was right all along.
It's almost like the prisoner's dilemma, that you have what were we talking about before with that, where you have these two sides that come to meet each other, but which decision will ensure your survival the greater, and it seems to be what, let's say, is up against here. And I thought it was fantastic how the centaur, with all this, we get all this description of the centaur and his power and his majesty and his voice, and Lysaea is the only one that stands up to the creature, like Seth Sullivan Evans weeping on the ground, and all the other soldiers are just like they're done, they're a mess, and and he's the only one who can actually stand up to him and actually go against, talk back to him and go against what the centaur is saying, and that's a incredible.
It's a tense
Incredible
moment too.
willpower.
Yeah, but it's also kind of underscored as a counterpoint that as the one said, I am a shade bearing only a shade's influence.
Yep.
And how much more potent would it be,
it's a real thing.
to have one living, breathing.
Right. And the in the chapter, the next chapter, even Sethvir finds Lysaea that beguiling.
Yeah.
That he's like, wow. Even Sethvir was like, wow, this guy's unbelievable. And so it was just I just love all the description and all how it all plays out was just incredible.
Now, in some ways, a part of it with him and the things Lysaea has done and whatnot. Oh, is that Varsha trying to catch up to us? Are you into chapter 10 now?
That is a nice Kindle.
Yeah.
But and the things he's done, I don't know. You guys probably don't play these, but there's a character in the online version, of Final Fantasy 14, who experiences this awful tragedy and has done these horrible things, right? Justifying it all, with it'll restore my people and restore the world to how it was before, before this horrible tragedy, wrecked everything, right? And what he's left is he looks around at the world and it's like it's a little, it's a diminished, miserable, wasteland compared to what he remembers. And his goal is to restore it, and he's willing to do whatever he has to for that. But he absolutely won't, let go of that fact that everything was better beforehand. And you can totally talk to him and reason and see his point of view, but yeah, he won't let it go of that idea, because if he lets go of that idea and admits that maybe everything isn't as bad as he thinks it is, then he has to face the fact that he's done all of this and killed all, engineered the deaths of, countless people for nothing. Pointless.
Because being that wrong, being that wrong would be that horrible. And
but it kind of goes back to something we were talking about in our other discussions this weekend. It's this presenting of the idea. Like, we think back to book 1 when Arathon and Lysaea were on a level, and we were trying not to see one as the good guy and one as the bad guy. But ultimately, Lysaea's dealing with this truth is really cowardice. In some ways, he can't break down and accept that he might be wrong because of the implications for his ego and for himself and for what he's done in the world. And yet Arathon continues to be completely selfless throughout a lot of these books. To hell with his own reputation or what he's doing for people or otherwise. So as the books go on, it becomes very hard to be Team Lysaea at all, even though some of us have already ordered t-shirts a little bit and whatever else. It is made difficult as the time goes on.
Actually,
See, I'm not a team. Oh, go ahead, Varsha.
I was gonna say, I think in this section, I actually felt for Lysaea, and I felt more sympathetic towards him at the end of it than I did before. I think the comparative scene is the one where he goes to the Adept hostel and is shown the purity and that the fact that he's cursed, and he refuses to accept that and he leaves. And I felt angry at him at that point. But now I feel somewhat sympathetic towards him, because it seems that he actually believes it, and it seems that it's not necessarily fully for his ego that he's refusing to listen. Like this line, for instance, he says, what but if you're wrong, if your race is demonic and your illusions are lies, then I become worse than damned. I would forfeit salvation before taking the chance of abandoning mankind to the darkness. So it seems that he genuinely believes, in whatever twisted way the Mistwraith is making him do so, that he is saving the world, and that he would risk damnation for it, like risk being wrong in exchange for damnation, just to be certain that he's ridding the world of what he considers a giant evil.
Yeah, it's just fair, and I think it's touched on too in Fugitive Prince when Sethvir shows Traith, his aura, and how when they confront him at Althane afterwards, where he does, that belief is his way of, because they refer to it there, I think, as a dark lordly pride that refuses to back down and admit that he might be wrong, and thus if that's so that why he sees his own as like, no, you must be fake, because if you aren't fake, then what have I done all this for?
Yeah, but there he's saying that I don't want to feel bad about myself. Here he's saying I don't want to take the chance that you are not right in saying the spinner of darkness is innocent. Now, I am taking what he's saying at face value. I don't know what his internal thoughts are and what's driving him to say this. But that was my distinction, why I think I came away with a better taste in my mouth about Lysa uh, than after the Ats Adept scene, which, like, this I think is very similar to that, and we got a pretty similar outcome, but I think his reasoning just feels ever so slightly different enough that yeah, less
And I
less
think
angry at him.
I think that's what makes him really interesting, because I'm 100% Team Arathon, and I think that the books, even though there are those more quandaries, I think the books do sort of nudge you in that direction. Um, and as such, I find Lysaea more interesting personally than Arathon as a character, because even though Arathon does have those nuances and he has these decisions that he takes, you're like, oh my god, you stupid idiot. And I think that's very kind of human. He's flawed, but he's not a bad person. And I don't think Lysaea is bad or evil either, but I think he's not just a flawed personality. He's different, and exploring the nuances of his character kind of intrigues me more than Arathon, because I feel like I kind of know Arathon, I relate to him more, whereas Lysaea, I'm kind of like, this is a really interesting character. There's so many facets to him that I don't relate to, and I want to know more about that and why he does these things. And so I feel myself drawn to him more than I do Arathon, because he's the character that I don't recognize as much. Which I think is very interesting, that I can definitely team Arathon, but I'm drawn more towards Lysaea. It's this sort of Shakespearean tragedy. I mean, this is like the third time he's had a chance with some sort of Paravian or something has come visited him. We had the hostel as well with the Adept. This is like the second or third time he's rejected it, and he's been shown it right in front of him, and he's rejected it. Like, I just can't. Someone needs to knock some sense into him.
Yeah, second, it's like the sorcerers tried to appeal to him, but yeah, the Adepts doing their thing, and then the Paravian here, is number two.
Even his own wife tried to appeal to him.
That's right. Too soon.
Yeah.
3 books later, it's too soon.
Too soon.
Did anyone
I'm never
else?
getting over that.
I will say though, while I did find, and I do find this starts to be some interesting stuff with Lysaea throughout this one here, and then with what comes next in the next two books, but I will say, whatever little sympathy I had for his struggles and trying to stand before the Paravian, as soon as it had gone on its way, I kind of lost that when the very first thing he decides that he's going to do is stomp over there and stab a sword.
Yeah.
And it's like,
there's no justice in there in what he's doing. Like he's literally
it's like
doing
tired. It just felt like, oh no, here's the spiteful acting. I'm pissed off now, and I'm going to go do this because screw him.
Doesn't make me feel better. And for everybody else that is starting to have feelings towards compassion towards Lysaea, that's just the Svalin in you,
I mean, that's a compliment.
I know. That's the only one you're getting out of me.
One thing I thought, slight divergence, just to Arathon, since you brought up, Svalin, compassion and whatnot. As I saw this come up, in a someone's review of one of the books, where they don't think that Arathon, is like very empathic or compassionate at all. And I'm just like, well, you do realize, and I was just kind of baffled because you talked about it with Janny a little bit. I'm like, well, you realize that, like, he feels and understands all the people around him and shares whatever, compassion, grief and stuff that they have. And do you know how much that has to hurt to be around people? So when he's, like snappish at people, it's like he's doing that because it hurts to actually, empathize with these people. He doesn't want, that's why he's holding people, so many people at arm's length and has so few, really close confidence because, it just, everything hurts.
Yeah.
It's like being an empath actually kind of sucks, or has the potential to anyway.
Yeah. Especially if you got the fate of the world on your shoulders. Like it's a bad combination.
Yeah.
Not just the world, all those deaths that haunt him over and over again. It's just,
Now including Jarrett's,
yeah. And, it just drives him to be very, very insular, which I think, could be seen as, oh, they're not empathic, they're stone-like. But I think that sort of thing drives you inside your own mind to kind of torment yourself. And so that may, if you're reading it on a surface level, perhaps, and that doesn't necessarily come through on the page to someone just sort of skimming it through. But when you really think about it, as Chibi said, the effect that would have on you, and I think that really drives that insular sense where he has, again, very few friends.
And he's also very limited in what he can actually do about it, because he has this mandate from the sorcerers. He has to stay alive in order to, further their goals. And he can't go in anywhere sword swinging to try to take out his everything that's wrong in his life. And so it's a lot to live with that he can't actually do anything about without making things worse.
and another thought too on that, just something to keep in mind once you get past these chapters, is, with the things he's done, and he feels bad for him and everything, but ultimately what's the point? With the guilt and everything, what is it that he can do to make, these things right for, who've been people who he's personally hurt or have been hurt because of, actions he's taken, like, all the people dead at Vastmark. He's like, he's no way he can ever satisfy those people
for that. Yeah.
And so what's he going to throw money at them? That's not going to help them.
Yeah.
But just keep that thought in mind.
And let's not forget that he doesn't even really want to be here. Like, let's just think about that for a second, because maybe this is getting a bit dark, but like anyone that's sort of been through sort of mental health struggles will know that feeling of, I just don't want to be here, and how strong and all encompassing that can be. And to have that, but to feel the weight and to carry that burden, and to have his one desire be, I just want to, kind of live my days out with my music, practicing that, and I don't want to be it anymore. I'd happily pass through the veil and leave everything behind and live in Athliera, but he has to, he's bound to. And he didn't even, if I remember correctly, he didn't even really want to do that. So to have that on him, to not want to be in that moment of, I just don't want to be here anymore, this is all my fault, but then he has to stay here. It's not even like he's putting that on himself. He literally has to. He's bound to by this magic. So that, like, just to think about the depths of that, like how that must weigh on him, just like,
wow. Even we saw earlier in this book where he's just, and we've actually seen it since Fugitive Prince and whatnot, where he's just actively suicidal.
Yeah.
I think we just, kind of breeze past that because it's uncomfortable, but there's multiple points through the last one where he's just like, he just wants to give up.
And he can't even, he can't even hook up with the woman he loves.
Yeah.
And, so it's not looking good.
Yeah. All right. So that, then what do we have next? Oh, yes.
Well, how about the Bragan guy? He's something else. He when I love the description when he finally draws that sword out.
Yes.
The blade pulled free with a crackle of white sparks.
Yeah.
I thought that was just outstanding. What a visual.
Yeah. One of those great ones. And I thought it was a nice, because you get, and all these different stories where they got magic swords, and they draw the magic sword and something happens. Like I think one particularly awful series is like every time he draws it out, it has this particular sound when it comes out, and I hate that series, but I'm not going to start on that one. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. That one has a lot of problems. But yeah, it's just a nice little nod to like, oh yeah, he drew the sword and something magical happened.
Crackle.
Yeah, and but then that stand he has this breathtaking battle, with all these the Alliance soldiers coming after
Yeah,
them.
it's a squad of what, 3, 4, 6, something like that, and
it was something
swapping out, and he's
It was a hell of a stand, and then finally
Yeah.
Arathon saves him with by shooting the arrows at the last moment there. But unbelievable description, unbelievable battle description at that point with Bregan taking down these guys and having this running battle with them and fighting them in
I like,
I forget what kind of structure they were in, but it was very exciting. I really liked how that
I like the
played out.
on that part, the where you got Bragan's internal thoughts on it, and as he's sizing up each of the guys, and he gets to that one who's like really technically skilled, but he's just has no imagination. It's just
and these idiots are sending in one guy at a time.
Yes.
Keeping themselves fresh. But Bragan's like, I will be damned before I lose to this guy who has no imagination. It's all boring, technical. He's like, no, I'm not going to lose to this little punk who, sort of, he's technically skilled, but he's boring.
I like the little reversal at the end where we saw Bragan try to get through some gates last time with Arathon lying unconscious on the other horse, and then next
in the
time
cart.
Arathon is taking Bragan, and Bragan's unconscious, and Arathon's asking for help. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Meets up with the little outpost of clansmen, and and again, it's one of those. It's like I like that she just kind of fleshes these all out. The clansmen are like, yeah, we're absolutely helping you, and they all want to go, and he's like, no, we can't all go. That may come in chapter 13, but then we get chapter 12. Rockfell.
Oh wait, before we move on, I want to talk about the Raven a little bit more. The Raven, first, it's Traith's Raven, which I guess there was a bit of misdirection at the beginning where he called her she, right? But we've only ever seen Traith refer to the Raven as brother, and we're told towards the end of the section that the Raven is Traith's. So I thought for a while that it was not Traith's, it was some other Raven that's helping Jared out. But the main thing I wanted to talk about the Raven was the description of how black her
the eye,
color was, and I think she used words like rainbow and prism, and like she's describing black, but that it's a rainbow of black and I guess a prism of blackness, which I thought was very interesting and is surprisingly effective to describe black, right? And then there was one other thing that was mentioned. I think, was it Jared? I don't remember who thought this or figured this out, but that the raven's blackness is what potentially, like whatever's making the raven's form, is what powers Arathon's mastery of shadow as well. And I thought that was pretty cool, that connection.
Very nice.
That was a sequence I think I'm just gonna have to reread like so many times just to get every little thing that's in there. It was just when I read that the first time, just oh, I didn't understand a word of it, but I was like, this is amazing.
But the imagery, like it's a lot of Johnny's writing. It's there's certain parts where you go, this is just almost ethereal. I often think when I'm reading it, it's like you're sort of transported in and around what's happening in the world just because of the way the language is used, and it's it's really a bit special.
I was talking earlier, and I was like, you know what? These books need to have like university courses dissecting, these.
Yeah.
Like, where are our, crazy in-depth discussions? Don't waste our time on Malazan anymore. Let's talk about this. But everyone's like, oh no, gotta talk about Malazan. I'm just complaining about, Malazan all being all over BookTube. Actually, if I want
let's read all the books.
We can have both series be all over.
Yeah, Malazan's not is not as bad as it, but yeah, if I wanted to complain about one more, I'd complain about like Sanderson, but I'm not gonna get started on that either. So.
Before we move on quickly, just one thing that I don't know if other people picked up on. I think it's probably one of the most important lines here with the centaur when he goes, living Peravians still inhabit Ethera.
Yes.
So that's like the first confirmation. So they're still on Ethera. They're not anywhere else. They are there. So I thought that was really important to kind of pick up on.
Confirmation. Well, third confirmation, actually.
Well, I missed the other two, but I think, that's the first time it's explicitly said.
Our first time was Curse of the Mist Wraith. When the as they're clearing the mists, the unicorn looks up at the sky as the mist is clearing, and then looks over at a cave, a little puzzled. So we know there's a Peravian somewhere that was underneath the mist. And then our second time was earlier in this book, when the unicorn walked in to over there. And then we have this one as our third,
All right,
where he says yes, they still inhabit Ethera.
Yeah, Janny does this a lot. Things that she restates again and again that you may have forgotten.
Yeah.
Things like Athen's handy with a sword. For everything else that he does, he keeps on restating and showing that he's handy with a sword.
Yeah.
And a bow and arrow too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. You'll see some of how he became so good with a sword and a bow and arrow shortly.
He's headed somewhere where his ancestors died from too much compassion.
Yeah.
Hey, we're not to that chapter yet. Shh.
How do you know? You haven't even read that part yet.
I mean, read the
news item at the end of chapter 13. Hey, who hasn't finished the chapters now?
Yeah.
I was going to say, there's a reason Varsha doesn't want to move on from chapter 11 because it's the only fucking ones she's read.
True. Here's what I did. I did chapter 11 and then the news items from 12 and 13. So that's how I'm able to talk about that.
To be fair, there's a lot happens in the news items in these 3 chapters. Like a lot.
Yeah. There is. Cool. So then we move on to
Rockfell
Peak.
Yes.
Is,
I knew we were going to come back to this. I was gone.
I was like, oh, finally, we're back to Dakar.
Yeah.
And the 2 sorcerers up on the peak there, and then I just cracked up because
Fionn.
The tables have turned.
Yeah, Fionn, right? But, she invents this new slang called the only a sorcerer would go to such lengths to carve follies that drive a grown man to the gruelies. I was like, what is that?
I tried to look up that word. I don't know.
But he kind of explains it in the next sentence, but it was like a grassland dialect referred to spooked fear. But I was like, that's brilliant. That was like this neat slang that's introduced into into the talk that I wasn't like, because everything's so serious a lot of the times, and I just wasn't ready for that. And as soon as I read that, I laughed out loud. I was like, "Gruelies."
I
Goolies.
believe, taking a look here, I believe that's entirely, her creation.
Yeah, no, it seems that way.
'Cause I
It
tried
definitely
Googling it,
that's
and well, after I get past the, where Google's like, "Did you mean Grillies?" I'm like, "No, I didn't mean Grillies."
yeah.
The very first result is from the Paraviolation.
No, I think it was
And
definitely something she
the
made up
rest of
for the
it's something.
dialect of that of the grasslands, and it was italicized. And I think that was for a reason as well. And I really thought that was just fascinating. But yeah, we got a lot of talk here, a lot of stuff between Dakar and the sorcerers.
Yeah, and like I said, how the tables have turned for Dakar.
He knows what it feels like now.
I thought the car was wonderful in the scene because he's just like, no, don't want to be here. This is
Don't
not
want
the
to
place
be
for me.
here. I'm not ready for this,
No.
but I will do it.
But with a typical Dakar, when push comes to shove and they need somebody to throw your body in the line, he's the one to do it as well. For as much as he talks the talk about being a card, he isn't really. It's one of the things that sort of makes him so endearing.
Yeah. And how the other two are tactful enough to be like, yeah, we're not going to talk about the fact that when we just knocked this fool, over here out, that, a few years ago, a couple decades ago, you were the fool, that we had to knock out. We're just going to not talk about that.
I like that he knows from self-realization, though, that I was such a pain and they should have knocked me out.
Yes.
Yep.
The permission that he gave Karadmon to do
Oh.
his work
Oh, I forgot.
through him, he didn't. What he gave him the permission beyond his life, right? Which is interesting. I wanted to know what that meant. Is it that if he tries to pass beyond the veil, that they'll stop him and keep him alive no matter what? And it seems that they are doing that to a certain extent towards the end.
Correct. Yeah, too. And and it'll also tie into something in 13, that brings Erethan into the whole mess is, the vows he made to will keep him, they'll do whatever they have to keep him going because they need him there as a vessel for it. So even if they have to call upon his ties to Erethan and suck the life out of Erethan.
I like that bit. When in this chapter, some of the descriptions felt like what we had seen before when Arathon raised up the lane forces back in Jailed, and then again when he was trying to get back to Jailed. And I was like, who might help here? Arathon. I wonder how they're going to get him to help. And then it was really cool how they brought him in. And yeah, we aren't there yet, but I liked that this chapter, besides everything else that it did, which we could probably talk about for an hour, also laid the ground for bringing Arathon in the next one.
Well, it wasn't just that they brought Arathon in. The power that he displayed even wowed like Caradmon. There's that sentence where like even Caradmon's kind of awestruck by kind of what Arathon's actually able to do with the music, and while it's sort of some people suspected that it's perfect fit for it, actually how powerful that was something else.
Yeah,
You know?
must have
Very
more
cool.
charge, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I
wow.
like they mentioned like all those free wraiths roaming around. The free wraiths have moved out of Marek, and they talked a lot about some of the stuff going on in the world, and of course they're up against their own problems up here on Rockfell Peak, and it just emphasized, that there's other stuff going on in the world besides what they're going through right there, and that there's a whole bunch of bad things happening. And I also really love how Caradmon gives us a little bit of personal history.
Mm.
He mentions visions of or his past on other worlds that were nothing like Athera, where he has like he mentioned sprawling cities of glass and all this other stuff, and I was just like, oh, that's pretty cool. I want to know more about that stuff.
Yeah.
And this beautiful lady he once loved, Carlene, and
Yeah.
he had to share his memory of her, and so it was just pretty cool getting that little bit of history of this powerful sorcerer who's probably been around for thousands of years or whatever, um and knowing that he was he was from other worlds and he was involved with other worlds, and he's here trying to save this one. And it was just like it gave you that big scoping span of stuff that these sorcerers are involved in and were involved in at one time.
Yeah, I love that. And the thing with the woman in his past, that was such a nice
Yeah.
touch to make
Yeah.
them feel more human, because these fellowship sorcerers are almost, I was thinking about it, almost these godlike beings, right? At least the clan members, they have to sort of petition them to come. It's more that they're giving them permission to act on their behalf, but it almost feels like a bit of a prayer sometimes when they ask for fellowship help.
Mm.
But and it makes the fellowship sorcerers feel a bit like, I don't know, I liked that bit of connection to him with that woman from his past.
Yeah, they're more grounded.
Yeah, yeah. And and the other thing that was interesting was, apparently, as far as we knew until now, they had destroyed a world before. We only knew of one, but here it says entire worlds on fire or something to that effect, like meaning multiple. Um, so yeah, I'm curious just what the extent of that damage was, because if humans had colonized other planets besides the one that they were on originally, what made it so Athera was the last resort, and what happened to all of the others. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure if I'm reading too much into that plural there.
No, and they we have touched a little on this in the previous, because at the hearing at Althane, when Moriel wanted the Waystone fixed or demanded that they undo what they'd done, she referred to Callum Kincaid as the destroyer of worlds. And
Oh,
we
she
know
said that. Okay.
yeah,
Ooh.
and we know that from the discussion with the Riverboat guy in Grand Conspiracy, Asandir outright admits that they had thought they had accomplished Paravian survival, and all they had to do was deal with the leftover Mathuri, like the stuff in Myrtlevein, and they would be free. And then humanity arrived and reinstated the Drake's binding all over again, and they had to deal with that because they were the reason that humanity was here in the first place, because they'd been wandering
Yeah.
for however long.
And we find out Seth Fair's real name is Callum Cade.
Yes.
That blew my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I think Chibi could tell you. I was like, I'm freaking out. What?
Yeah.
Callum freaking Kincaid, the guy back all the way in like Fugitive Prince that we haven't even heard a mention of really again. And then I've been waiting for him to come back in. And then he's Seth Vitter? Like, what? He's meant to be the good guy, but he's also like the really, really evil bad dude we're worried about. Like,
well,
what?
I don't know if it's. I mean, she refers to him as selling out his great weapon as and becoming a destroyer of worlds, but we don't know a whole lot of the context behind it. Sundering Star touches on it.
Is that yeah? Because is it like Oppenheimer, destroyer of worlds, or is it I'm evil scientist in a superhero movie?
I don't know that he
Destroyer
was
of worlds.
necessarily. Who read Sundering Star? Anybody?
I
No,
haven't
not yet.
yet. No.
Not yet. I got
okay.
it the other day.
It's very short, but essentially is I don't know that it's necessarily evil scientists as it is, scientists who just built stuff and then had various political factions pressuring him, and he went screw you all, and chose the most you're like, you will not pressure me into making weapons for you, or else. And they didn't think he was, I'm speculating here because, like I said, it's still a lot of questions about that, but they didn't think he was, they thought he was bluffing, and he wasn't. And he made his technology available to like everyone. And it set off, instead of one group having it, everybody had it, and they all started using it. Kind of situation.
Usually a short destruction
suspect,
situation.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot we don't know about it, but
sounds typical and not at all like any of the other books we've been reading recently.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit. No.
Well,
But
I'm very curious how he got from being a scientist to like. I mean, we see how amazingly powerful he is. Where did he get all that power from? Did he come with it from the worlds he had from being a scientist, or how did he get all that power that he's able to just like control the entire world?
There was a line in there that said the Drakes gave them the power. Wasn't that right,
Yeah.
Chewie? Yeah, isn't that
is correct. Yeah, the Drakes, along with the Blood Oath, the Drakes did something else to them. More on that, we'll come up to. But
yeah,
cool.
So he's getting better, Seth Fear. He's starting to recover from his in this chapter. A little bit recovering, and I found interesting that he mentioned the idea of independent necromancers in this chapter, and I was like, all right, so there's other people, because we've had mentions of like random witches, we've had mentions of the clanborn having certain abilities, and now we got these independent necromancers somewhere, and I found it really cool that there's all these different means of accessing magic that's not just through the auspices of the sorcerers or the Coriani, or there's other things, terms of magic going on in this world besides what we've seen from the major part of the story. And I thought that was a really neat mention. I'm wondering where that's going to come up later, because it was just a quick.
Definitely is. But yeah, no, the little tidbits for necromancers, we've had them, over a couple of books now. Like there's one in Grand Conspiracy. Seth Fear, when he visits Avenor, and they're having all the hearings about, and trying to wake up all the people that Ascendir's thing with the trees did. Seth Fear's like, that's a necromancer stick, and he's like, no, don't be, that interferes and whatnot. And then Warhost of Vastmark has a reference, I think, really early on.
That was a long time ago.
When Seth Fear realizes that the Caradmon's coming back and that the Wraiths are chasing him, and he calls, Luhane and, whoever to help. And I think it's Luhane, and mentions Luhane abandoned some spirits that had been left, running wild by the doings of a necromancer. So we've had little mentions of them here or there. And at least our suggestions are they're not very nice.
Yeah, but at that point in Warhost, I didn't know if that was just if maybe that was just a reference to the betrayer or not. At this, but now it seems like they're independent. That was the main key that I got out of this newer mention of it. Yeah.
I'll say is necromancers are bad news.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, like, what are they necromancing? Like, because we haven't sort of seen any sort of dead bit. Like, what normally with necromancy, you're kind of appealing to dark powers. But of course, the dark powers in this world is the Master of Shadow. We haven't actually really seen, like, what. I'm curious, what are these necromancers using? What powers are they gaining from? I don't know. But
can they necromance some Paravians back?
Yeah.
Zombies. I don't know. But you have the spectre.
Please be zombies.
Please be zombies. You have the spectre of the other things that are coming in. So you've got the Cadram, you've got the Wraiths, you have the I can't remember what you call the poisonous snaky things, the meth.
Oh, the meth. thingies.
Yeah.
Some of the meth thingies. So, you know, it is
Met-
quite possible not all of those are live.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Weird.
And they were brought in by necromancy. The
Mm.
Matilvine swamp things, those were some Drake spawn. They're all Drake spawn, aren't they? But maybe
Yeah, the a lot of the stuff in Mirthfulane was the product of the Mithiri, the hate wraiths,
mm,
and twisted and corrupted the stuff there. And despite their best attempts, the stuff keeps crossbreeding, and the sorcerers haven't been able to, eliminate, and so keep getting this hostile, nasty stuff that has really terrible poison.
mm. But more importantly, it seems that Lysa's high priest is involved with the necromancers, right? Do I remember that correctly?
Could be.
Cerebral, yeah.
It's
sort of
conceivable.
intimated. Yeah. It's one of the things that Sethvir sees when we get the, we get an idea of all that Sethvir kind of purveys, the kind of detail that he sees when he pervades through the world. We kind of get that little line about Cerebral in there about what he's doing, and yeah. It's sort of intimated.
I never liked that guy.
Never. Not since that first weird head massage.
He's interesting because we, like you say, we all kind of hate him, but we haven't really seen that much of him on the page. He's still sort of in the shadows, so to speak, which is very interesting.
He's just this snaky, oily kind of character that, as like from the first time we met him, I'm like, I do not like this guy.
And they can communicate between their heads as well.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's
right.
The weird thing that never really got explained.
Mm.
And that, it's very weird. Anyway, sorry, Bosh, you're going.
Oh no, I was saying that he's responsible for Talet's death too, that we know of, and now he's hunting. Why do I keep wanting to say Ilera? What's her name?
Elaine.
Elaine. Yeah. Desperately. Yeah, I do not like that guy. At this point, it's a toss-up between him and Moriel / Celidi.
Yeah.
Just
And
have
not
this
Lyser.
insecurity.
Another team Lyser. There we go. There's confirmed.
I mean, okay, so Lyser is a very particular kind of. He still reminds me of real life people, right? But they are not as prominent as, say, people like Cerebald and Moriel, who, like, selfish needs over long term good, whatever. Anyway, that's it. They rile me up. That's the summary of that long-winded statement. What was I going to ask? Yes, about the Drake dream. Is this the first time we find out in the books that this is how the Fellowship Sorceress came into the world? Because I know we got to know about this during that first discussion with Janny after Curse of the Mistwraith, where she talked about how the Drakes pulled the Fellowship Sorceress into this world. The snippet that she read us that time. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if this is the first we find out about it, like in the proper text.
It's the first time that I remember seeing it kind of in that detail, but I also think this is the first time that maybe I've seen it where I've kind of understood enough about what's going on to be looking for it as well. You understand enough about the world. I suspect a lot of these things, if we were to start again, we would go, oh,
yeah,
there it is there. Yeah.
I suspect on a second read we'll be doing a lot of that. Oh, that's mentioned there. Oh, that's mentioned right there. So in the future someday, but but now
we need a 2047. Yeah.
What I liked about the beginning of chapter 13 was when Arathon he gets a little stumped by the clansman's prescience, and I found that fascinating because he wants to move forward and keep going, and the clansman's like, well, you won't. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm going. And the clansman's, well, that's just what I saw. You're not going to go anywhere, whatever wherever he was trying to do. And I found that hilarious that he like even as much as he knows about magic and as much as he can do, he still can get stumped by somebody else's ability. And I just thought that was hilarious. And we got a good idea, a good explanation of some of his training too in this
Mm.
from the past in this section, which was really neat.
Yeah.
And I really liked the melding of the two, but from his master at Robin and the what he learned from Halaron, because earlier I don't think we got much of his training back on Dasaniller, as far as I remember. But but we did see a lot of snippets of what Halaron taught him. So
Yeah.
I really liked the merging of the two, how he mixed the two up to then do what he did, which was brilliant and made a lot of Fellowship sorcerers cry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff, especially those kind of that idea that listening is as important as actually doing, and
Yeah.
watching that kind of feel the world around you, be it one with the world. It's kind of again, same themes in a lot of these books that
Yeah.
we're reading, isn't it? So I find it so incredible how these books bleed into each other and sort of common themes about how symbiotic relationships are between
Mm.
beings, the world around us, and all of that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I really loved that scene. And it was interesting. It felt like he was losing his palm, losing the use of his hand, and he got around it earlier in the book by singing, and that was sufficient to do some of his magic. But it I mean, starting from the impression that without his hand, he's going to be crippled, he'll lose the use of the Lyranth, and so maybe he'll be less of a master bard than he was before. But oh my god, he is so much more than we've seen him be so far. I thought that was pretty brilliant.
Yeah. And then we find out we get some confirmation that only the earth bond was made by tradition on
Mhm.
the hour that he was sanctioned as crown prince, and that there's something still missing from
The
the
other
ritual,
attunements.
or from what?
The other attunements.
Yeah, something still missing from the other attunements, and I didn't realize that, because it's been so long since he got that crowning in way back in the that was in Curse, right? And so you wonder what he's missing out on by
if it was properly done.
not having that attunement, and stuff like that. And what other like societal rules go along with that, and there was a lot of mystery there. And I was just like, oh, I feel like I feel like I'm missing out something here.
Well, one consideration, I mean, and this is still, we still, have had little tidbits on and whatnot, and they even touched on it here. So what did the High Kings do?
Well, yeah. Well, that is another question, because that actually comes up in the news items at the end here with that High King Camridian, and you're like, okay, what's the deal with that? And yeah, what exactly do these
What was their role?
what do these High Kings do? What's their role, and what does it all mean that they have this role and these attunements, and all these questions just came up in this chapter, and I'm just like,
yeah, because it's like we've got enough to guess that whatever it is they do, it's despite what some of the townsfolk feel, it's not like the tyranny that they refer to of the High Kings, isn't like taking all their money or taxes or anything like we would think of as like a king being a tyrant, so it's a little more than that.
So I'm trying to remember what happened in Curse that did the Earth. Okay, so I have two things that I want clarification on. One, is it that when they confirm a prince to be the heir, they bind to earth, and then the other elements come later when they're actually going to be crowned high king? Or was the ceremony incomplete? Did they only get around to one element and they were going to do the other three at in the curse scene that we where he was supposed to be crowned? And second, the ceremony apparently completed now with what he did in this chapter. So I'm trying to remember what interrupted it. Was that when Lysair went crazy, or did something else happen that time?
They might have done the rest of the the attunements with the coronation before Lysair interrupted it. Not entirely sure of the whole process since we've never seen one properly crowned, but yeah, at least the first bit was when Asandir took the dirt and turned it into the circlet, and did the attunement there. And then I assume it's either the other three happen at the same time or it's like stages. It's not, Janny probably knows. We can ask her, but yeah, that's about all I know.
That
But
makes sense, but
the other
I'm
didn't happen,
trying.
because
Yeah.
Lysair went off the rails.
Okay, that was when that happened, and Arathon went on the run before the ceremony could be completed. Okay. And why does Sethware call it a sacrifice? Is it the fact that the ceremony, or rather, what is Sethware referring to as a sacrifice? Is it the completion of that ceremony with Earth, or is it the fact that he's going to be now reviled even further because of how the lane tuning stuff happened?
I
No, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say I read that section a couple of times actually to get through it. I think it was the fact that the Rathian as a province is going to be split between poverty and flourishing. And that
Hmm.
he relies on the Clanborn support quite a lot, and it's going to be split. It's going to be hurt
Hmm.
because people are going to be hurting.
Got
Did I
it.
get that right?
Yeah, the rest it's like half the continent point is retuned, but the other lanes are still kind of all disrupted. So Tizen and the other side will still be suffering from messed up winter and everything, but not this side, but also it's I'm not clear as to the exact times, but it's like that sequence as he does that um, plays out and delays him, so it puts him at further risk. That was sort of the sacrifice. Plus, if he hadn't managed to pull it off, then Erethan would be dead, and Dakar would be dead, and there'd probably be a lot of burst stuff with the Rockfell going erupting and things like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I really like that Davian told the people, the clan folk, that he has my what? I forget. Undying loyalty, not loyalty.
Admiration.
Admiration. Yeah, I like that.
I think that's right.
He's spoken like 3 sentences so far. I like every single thing he said. uh, what else?
Davian.
Davian, yes. By the way, the eagle, I thought it was Davian shape shifting. So one, everybody's
Ooh.
surprised that he leaves marks in the ground when he when he's supposed to be this corporate.
Yep.
And so far, I was under the impression that he's the one transforming into the eagle and back. But he mentions that the eagle is his friend or something to that effect. The eagle is mine, is what he says.
Mm-hmm.
So is he not shape shifting into the eagle? Is it just something that is along for the ride? And also, is this, I guess we don't know yet enough to say, but this feels like a new ability because we haven't seen any of the Fellowship sorcerers shapeshift into other creatures, if that is in fact what he's doing.
The Trevor boy. I thought was interesting about Davian is the fact that Sethvir knows Davian's been there the whole time. And you know that little tidbit that basically said, because we thought Davian was operating on the edges, but unseen. But Sethvir, as has been explained, knows everything, like literally everything that happens. Somebody coughs, that's it. If he knows I haven't left the bins out tonight for tomorrow, he knows.
He knows whether Vasha read all the chapters.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah.
There's no fooling Seth.
Are we saying that Sethvir is Santa Claus?
And he wears red.
I still think
And
Jared's
he's got
Santa
a white
Claus.
beard. White hair, white beard, red cloak.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that line from Fionn Aerith on when he's getting woken up by one of the sorcerers, by Luhane. He's telling him to go away, leave me alone, or better yet, kite off through the sky and maybe butt hump a moonbeam.
Yeah.
He is such a teenager.
He is.
Janny is just having so much fun writing this. You can just tell. But I thought we were getting somewhere with him because we had that whole thing right early on where he kind of sort of, when Dakar kind of shows him, okay, this is kind of what's going on, this is important. He's like, okay, I kind of understand. Then he just goes back to being an annoying little snot-nosed kid.
Yeah, I thought he had an experience near that Peruvian rock or whatever that changed his mind about things.
I thought we were getting somewhere, and then he's...
As somebody who has plenty of teenagers around here, they wake up completely different the next day, trust me.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, it's a pretty good, he's just brain stewing in hormones. You don't know which way they're going to turn any given second.
Yeah.
I've had that conversation earlier on the day with, are you okay? What's wrong with you? And the answer is, and this has been from a very young child, actually, to be fair, I'm crying and I have no idea why. Can we just leave it there? no rhyme or reason. I can't explain to you, but tears are here. This is where we're at.
I do that too, and I'm a full grown adult.
Yeah. It's the pressure of the page reads. I understand. Like nobody here really gives you a hard time about not reading the pages. You don't need to cry. It's fine.
But then I know why I'm crying.
Because Juliet died.
Of
course.
That's why. Yeah. There you go.
And for me, Talith died 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
Get over it, Chris. Other people have died since.
She's important to me.
I do like after he
Steven.
drinks from the water flask, and gets restored and everything, and all the other clansmen don't want to tell him about Kiwar and where he's been invited, and he's just like, what's so uncomfortable? It's like, all right, guys, come on, let's go. We can talk while we're riding. Don't just stand here milling around looking uncomfortable. We got to go. And then the one's like, there is a way. And he's like, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this Kiwar tunnel, right? This seemed pretty ominous.
I had been waiting for this.
We're left with that. We're kind of left with that at the end of the chapter. That's where they're going next. And
sorry, go ahead.
It's well, go ahead. It just seems scary. I mean,
I was echoing Chibi, but that I have been waiting for this because I know.
Yeah, since it was when I first read the series, because it's first mentioned in Curse of the Mistwraith, I had been waiting for it, and I'd especially been waiting for it because the cover of Grand Conspiracy, the portrait cover takes place. The setting is right outside Kiwar.
Okay.
So that scene, if you go look that picture up, you're going to see that scene in the next chapter.
But why was that picture in Grand Conspiracy though? Do we hear about it in that book?
It was just the cover she did, because at the time, I think when she did the cover, the and she may correct me on this, but at the time when she painted the cover, I don't think the decision had been made yet to split Grand Conspiracy. So the stuff that happens in Peril's Gate would have been in Grand Conspiracy, but it got to the point where it was going to be too big. So Peril's Gate and Trader's Knot stuff. So, it's my guess the portrait cover for Peril's Gate is, the scene out of basically that scene in 13. I think. I'm not totally sure though, but
cool. Yeah, it was a very dramatic reveal though. That's like we have to go there. They know it's a bad place, but they're going there anyway, and it really reminded me of. It reminded me actually of when in the Fellowship of the Ring where they had to go to the mines of Moria, even though they all knew it wasn't a good idea, and they still had to go there. And I got that feeling in the best way. I got that feeling, and I'm like, I have dread coming. I feel dread.
Only others to fall, as they say. The only one others to fallen has set foot inside Kiwar, and he died screaming.
Is that what we're told? I thought the guy says that none of your ancestors have come out alive, meaning more than one.
If there were others, I mean, there could be more. The only one I know of is Camridian.
He encountered the maze of Davian and died.
Yeah.
Entangled by the thorns of his conscience. That sounds so ominous.
Yeah, and if whatever he did, is it less or more than what Arathon has done so far? That's entangling his conscience enough that he can't do magic.
Yeah, and Arathon's done so much. So if I imagine Arathon may have done even more to weigh on his conscience.
If you were a hermit who didn't interact with anybody and didn't harm anyone, you could go in and just walk through.
This is feeling a bit like the Druidian maze in Wheel of Time. I enjoyed that scene in that. I'm trying to think, are there other tests of the conscience or tests of purity? I feel like this is something that we've encountered before, but I can't remember where.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I will say, like the Maze of Davian and the fountain and whatnot we're all part of the same.
Yeah,
same stuff for what Davian was working on.
And the scariest part of this is that Davian, we don't know his motives. He says he's protecting Arathon, but he's this wild card. We know his ultimate goal is to protect the Praevian survival at all costs. Does that include Arathon? Or he's built this maze, his ancestors died in it, he could die, and then we're absolutely screwed. What are this guy's motives? That's the scary part for me.
Yeah.
One thing to and you might have to go back in Grand Conspiracy for this is dig back to see where it is that we first see Davian start doing stuff. What was it that he started taking notice of? So,
and it wasn't Moria tearing the planet apart.
No.
Yeah, minor thing.
That happened around the same time, but that wasn't. It was something. It's one of those. Something small that you might not have noticed.
Chibi Pope, why don't you send me a DM?
I mean, you're gonna save Varsha reading it again. We're spotting a pattern here. It's I could read it. I know
Well,
where I do it.
I'll say Matt could also send you a DM because he started ahead in Trader's Knot, so
Yeah.
he may have encountered
I'm still completely clueless as to why he what woke him up.
I was trying to. Sorry, Chris, were you saying something?
No.
I was trying to find what Davian says when asked what his motives were in the past. He says something to the effect that he only ever did what he thought was best at the time. So it's not okay. Yes, he went rogue, and did we know about this before, that the Fellowship stripped him of his body for his betrayal? Or I thought he went the way Cardamon and Luhain did, just so engaged in some intense magic enough that he had to transfer. But yeah, but it seems that he did whatever he thought was right, however misguided it may have seemed at the time. Or maybe he had some long visions of like the long future that he was trying to prevent. But yeah, it is curious that he's taking an interest now, and he seems to be generally impressed by Arathon. So it doesn't also seem like he has it out for the high kings of Athira.
Yeah, I think this is the section you mean where he says, or someone's like, "You don't murder either, but history tells us you toy with men's lives. Why should we entrust you with this one?" His response is, "I have no time for your plotting review of the past." Trapped water gurgled as the sorcerer changed his grip. He clasped the horn between his opposing palms, then glanced skyward, his shot silk hair tumbling free as a stallion's mane down his shoulders. The stakes are too high to waste thought or motion. Always, then or now, I act to forestall the pitfalls that shadow the future. Which, yeah.
I guess his
good guy confirmed.
Sorry. Yeah, good guy confirmed.
Yeah, it's
It
from
seems
his
like,
mouth.
but he's right out of the, the Fellowship playbook. They ask him a question, right? Because we know they don't volunteer information, so he answers it, but he also doesn't tell them a whole lot.
Yeah,
it's just like, well, I do these things, but he doesn't tell them what things he's doing and what pitfalls.
How dare he?
How dare he? Yeah. I like how he starts that answer though. I have no time for your plodding review of the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
I like his moxie.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, so we're all Team Davian now. We get it.
Yeah, I feel like I've been Team Davian since we first knew about him at the fountain.
Oh yeah, I know that was another thing. I'm like, Grand Conspiracy in this. I was like, Davian, I've been waiting for this. I wanted to hear more. As soon as she gives him the name, the betrayer, I'm like, oh man, this guy's going to be either like, an evil sorcerer, or he's just going to be the coolest thing ever. And
I mean, we know from Curse that he's going to be the coolest thing ever because he's laid out all these mazes at Rockfell and he's done all these things that disturb people. So, if nothing else, I wanted to meet him for apparently how clever he is among the Fellowship sorcerers too.
But it's such an interesting thing to do. Like, if you think about it, this is the 6th book. We've sort of known about Davian for 6 books as this kind of thing in the background they could possibly do. I think it's 6 books in and go, we'll drop him in now. Obviously, around the point that Chibi's kind of said that there was a trigger for it, great. But you've had this kind of wild card up your sleeve, and even amongst that, as Jared said earlier on, with Davian, there's a whole lot else happening that we just feel like we don't really have any knowledge of, like in terms of these spirits coming from the other place, part of the Provians. The Provians are here, but they're not here. Where are all this? There's like, it's like when we see a wee tiny corner of the world, and the rest of it's just kind of there, and we can't see the forest for the trees, so to speak.
This is what I've been saying. Like, there's this fight between Lysaea and Arathon. It's almost a distraction. Yep. I feel like Janny is playing switch and bait with us, focusing us on this intensely personal feud between the two brothers, whilst there's all this universal stuff just going on behind the scenes. And she's going, no, 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 look here, the curse, whilst all this stuff is happening. And I feel like there's, yeah, it's a bit of a distraction because there's so much more important stuff. Like, out of them, I say, aren't really important in the grand scale of things. It's this all manner of things that could end the entire universe in a theory and annihilation. That's what we've got to really worry about.
Yeah, and they've got all these, things that are penned up and whatnot because, like she said, a Sundeer is always off doing something.
Yeah.
Sorry,
He
go ahead.
never stops.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think the question you have to ask is, I mean, the series is called The Wars of Light and Shadow, but it's not the Wars of Lysaea and Arathon specifically. So I'm just guessing that Light and Shadow encompasses a lot more than just those two guys, maybe, and we might be seeing some effects of that in the future, hopefully.
Yeah, as we've had them, threaten, or warn Lysaea that him founding his little religion is gonna eventually, slip his control, and what his followers will rule.
It's a case where they,
yeah,
it's a case where the title of the thing, you can't get too bogged down in the details of what that title might mean, because it could mean a lot more than what we're seeing.
Yeah. We also find out in this section somewhere in these 3 chapters, the parts that I, speed. We noticed that we find out that the Fellowship Sorcerers have been taking a lot of active action to keep the planet stable. Like, there was one bit about how there's something laid down in the seabed and the mountains. There's like they're preventing volcanoes from erupting. There's it feels like any small thing that breaks could catastrophically change a lot of the dynamics of the world, which is really interesting. Like, it needs active Fellowship presence to do all that. But I guess the implication there is that the Paravians used to keep all of this under control, and now they're not there, so that's why the Fellowship have to do so much.
Yeah, they're maintaining a lot, and like I mentioned, Alcindor is always off, going to fix something else. Like, never stays in one place for very long.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's not much of a spoiler, but Moriel's stunt to last book in Grand Conspiracy, had the potential to upset fault lines and basically rip the continent apart. Which is part of what they're dealing with in chapter 12 with Rockfell.
Yeah.
Because it's, there's a fault through the sky shields and whatnot. And, she just did her thing right on top of it. But, that's, further back in history, with the dragons and whatnot, they've had, the planet gets sundered, continent fault lines disrupt and everything.
Yeah.
So that would be very bad.
See,
and they still haven't. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Matt.
I was just gonna say quickly, and they still haven't. Speaking of Rockfell, they still haven't really dealt with it. It's kind of like a stopgap. The Wraiths are still there. It's still on a fault line. Like, this is absolutely going to kick off again, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the biggest problem that they had, here is with the lane imbalanced, would have ran all that energy through the the fault line that runs through there, and that would have basically caused it to erupt. And so with the lane being rebalanced with what Eretha did, that's no longer a worry. So they just have to rebuild all the protections that they had put up around the flask where Deshthir is trapped.
I still feel like they're going to find a way to get through somehow. There's no way that those Wraiths are hidden there and not gotten rid of for a reason. But we will see.
You watch Doctor Who?
I'm wondering if that'll just be the final conflict of the book in book 11, the Mistrates finally being released, and then some or coming from Marak, and they'll that's when that conflict will be resolved. And meanwhile, we're just building up the
Like I
tension.
said, who's watched Doctor Who?
Me.
All right, so my answer to this, is going to be one word, and I bet Chris is going to know what I'm going to say. Spoilers.
Say the word.
Spoilers
Spoilers is the word.
is the word. Yes. No one's
I thought it was gonna be timey-wimey.
No, I was just gonna, because that was her word whenever she popped up. So, and the doctor would ask her what what was going on. She's like, spoilers.
Yeah.
For a character in there. So anyway,
Yeah.
I guess no one.
You should be watching Doctor Who though. This series is very, very good. I think.
Some of the writers, directing the show have not been great, but the actors, usually make up for that. Usually.
Anyway, off topic.
Yeah, sorry. I was trying to be cute with the River Song reference, but not everybody got it. So I could feel like the, what's the, crickets, as everybody's like, what is he talking about? And I'm like, that failed. I'm sorry.
Oh, I just haven't seen the show, so.
As Alex Kingston. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say the thing that Moria did that feels very short-sighted, even for what she wants to accomplish, right? Because she was okay with ripping the planet apart. That would have killed a whole bunch of people. So you want to go back into the stars, but who do you want to take with you? It doesn't even feel like it's towards her goal. So what was she trying to do there?
I don't know if it was because of something I was talking with Matt or brought up with, where I asked Janny about it, but I don't think she I believe you mentioned that Janny said that Muriel didn't actually grasp the full scope of what she was doing, or what it could have caused.
Yeah.
So it was supposed to be a serious threat, but it wasn't. She didn't know what the full scale of what she was doing.
It sort of struck me that she wanted to mess with the Fellowship, but confident in the idea that the Fellowship, whatever she did, the Fellowship would be able to clean it up for her, but it would just keep them busy.
Okay.
Yeah,
fair enough.
I don't know if it's not knowing enough about the world, since humanity only came in about stuff older than her, that she could have set off. So
yeah, that's fair. So one other thing on the subject of Davian, sorry, I'm hopping around, but when Caradmon and Luhain, they're trying to figure out who can go help Arathon, they say, and that just leaves, and one of them stops the other from saying the name of Davian. One, that was interesting that they and also the clan Bon were not saying his name. And secondly, it was almost like they thought that Davian might come if they called him, which what reason do they have to believe that now, when he has been deaf to their calls for 5 centuries?
Thereabouts. It was Caradmon who's like, don't say that name because but yeah, and he is he goes out of the trouble throughout this to not give his name or anything. Even he did that with Alara. He's like, you must be, and he's like, don't say that name.
Yeah.
Which I thought was,
which is curious.
Would that name calling just attract other attention that they didn't
I don't know.
Well, it's a bit like Voldemort. Sorry, I said it.
Have to say, you know who, Chris.
you gotta, that's in the next chapters.
He who shall not be named. Speaking of Harry
Carabolt's the new Voldemort.
Speaking of Harry Potter references, I was actually thinking about this as I was reading. I think Rowling was asked in an interview, I don't know what she'd do if she ever met Harry face to face. And she said, I would take him out for dinner and apologize for everything that I put him through. I think Arathon deserves a similar mean and apology.
You kidding me? I'm gonna fly Chris over to Boston. We're gonna take him bar hopping. He needs a night out, that guy.
Yeah. He'll never go home again. Is that what? Yeah.
Oh, one other thing. The this is a lot to talk about. The when he enchants the water, the clansfolk refuse to give him the water until he acknowledges himself as a
Oh,
friend.
yeah.
Which again was interesting. Have you seen rituals like this where you have to invite, I guess for fellowship sorcerers, you have to invite them in to come to your home, right? And did they want to make sure that he was a friend before? Was giving him the water the equivalent of inviting him home, and that's why they wanted to know that he's a friend? Or was there something else going on there that I have no idea what happened?
I think there's
way more than that.
General suspicion, like your actions overthrew the High Kings. Why should we let you help us? And he's just like, and then he did I don't have time for you, babbling on about that. I'm here to get things done.
Okay. So it didn't have anything to do with like a ritualistic invitation to home or like
I don't think
share
so.
my water thing. Okay. All right, that's fair.
You can put that to Janny. She might know.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's everything from me. Any other topics that we missed? Which I think is very likely.
Yes, a lot happened.
Yeah, I liked the process of making the testament for Sethweir. What else?
It would be neat to get a like a reference or a source book of some sort that details all of the cultural rituals and stuff like that that they do have. That since you brought that up, because there's a lot of culture in here that I think is mentioned but not explained, and it'd be cool to have like some sort of source book that kind of put all that stuff together. And
I do know. I don't know, if or when all of it will be there. But her notes, all the notes and everything she's written over the 50 years, she plans to donate to the Eton collection, at Berkeley University.
Yeah.
And I know some of it she was talking to her and she said, that isn't going to them until after I'm dead, because I don't want to be embarrassed by how cringe, it was, talking about like the original, script, outline for the story when she wrote when she's like 18. And I was like, yeah, I can think of some of the stuff I wrote when I was 18, and I don't ever want that to ever see the light of day. So she's like, she kept to it, but she's like, yeah, it was, very, very basic. And she's like, I don't want to be embarrassed by that. So, but I don't know if you have to go in person to access that, or if they'll be curating it, into like a digital archive or what. But, but I know they collect other sci-fi and fantasy writer stuff, and curate it, and preserve it and whatnot. So.
No, when I'm like done the series, I would definitely be interested in a source book that has
source book, more story,
historical information and general information,
blood,
different cultures and stuff like that. Would be neat.
Yeah, it's like source book, more stories. I want it all, and like Queen, I want it now.
The one other thing that I spotted in the story here was, I think this is the first time they've talked about it, is the idea when the adepts are caring for Sethweir, that they talk about the fact that he can have a human successor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
missed that part.
And did they say that he can't right now,
He can't right now, so the
but
opportunity
he
would
could
be
have?
lost if he
Yeah.
died at that time, when he was
Mm.
kind of giving himself over. But that would be actually the biggest shame of if he perished at this time. So there obviously is a mechanism with which, or a way for the succession to happen if they plan for it.
Mm. And this would be his earth sense, right? That he would
Yes.
transfer.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
transfer. Yeah.
That. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I wonder if. Oh, and it needs to be a human
It says
because
human successor. I just looked up the wording again. Yeah.
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 Oh, sorry. I meant as in corporeal human, not
Oh.
someone say Jarrett. Um.
You're looking for a way to him come back.
I assume if they weren't, I assume that if they weren't, if they were discorporate, that could,
Discorporate,
the thing could be passed on to them, but I don't know for sure.
Hmm.
He's married anyway, fortunately.
There's a.
Kind of just want to be alive.
I do wonder who could be possible candidates for that.
Yeah, that's what my brain was starting to do.
Arathon, of course, is probably at the top of the list, but who else? Let's say not Arathon.
Kevor?
Ooh, nice.
No, Kevor would be off the table.
Why?
Yeah.
Athadepts do not interfere with the world.
Add to depths. No, but Setway can decide who to transfer his power to and if they are accepting of it. Or is it only the Adepts who can transfer his earth sense?
Well, I don't know if they are the only ones that can transfer his earth sense, but with actually, what's the last we saw of Kevor?
He
Yeah,
he
he's
was
still in the
deciding what he was going
hostel.
to do. Yeah, he was still in the
Yeah,
hospital.
he's at the hospital.
He hasn't woken up
Okay,
yet.
then I will shut
Yeah.
up. Right.
Yeah,
But-
I was gonna say you should be. He's getting ahead of himself there.
So much in the next 4 chapters that I'm like, I don't remember where that is. So.
Yeah, but what?
Yeah, that's in the next 4.
Elaine has seen a
RAFO.
film of him returning, though. So, yeah, RAFO. Yeah, I'm trying to think who else we know who can. Does it need to be someone? I guess it has to be someone with the clan bond, whatever the ability is called, the magical abilities.
Priests. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jensa maybe. No.
Sofin?
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean,
That would be a wild card, huh?
Mhm.
I think there's mileage to run and selfing in the story. Yeah, I feel it.
I mean, let's think about it. You'd have to have mage talent, and we know that Sethbeer is able to, foresee and predict, stuff that's going on a large scale.
Mm-hmm.
So those are at least 2 qualities we know of, and though that one may be because of the but who do we know? And I'm not saying that this is the case, I promise, but I don't know, just want to blow everybody's mind. Who do we know that has the ability to foresee the future?
Jared.
Not where we're going with that.
Jared the car. Who else?
Oh, Duck. Why did I? Okay, Dakar. I completely
The
forgot.
guy who's been an
about him.
apprentice for hundreds of years.
He's gonna refuse. He's gonna go kicking and screaming to that responsibility. So we know that they won't not do it against anybody's free will.
Like, he fits in great to be a fellowship sorcerer because he just spends a lot of time complaining, but just ends up doing it anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Oh, there's this really cute detail about Sethweir that we found out in this one.
With the
He lets-
spiders and the teacups.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was brilliant.
I seen that and thought of you. Yeah, Varsha did. I was like, oh, I want spiders and teacups.
Yep, that was it.
Yeah. Stole your thunder in that one, maybe.
No, but that was it. You hit the nail on the head. That was great.
I seen it and was like, yes, that's That's the thing. And it's very fitting in character. Like, it's so funny. Like, it was almost like it's something we already knew
Yeah.
because it's so
Yeah,
in keeping with his
exactly.
character. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
All right. So with that, are there are there any other topics that we should discuss?
I'm all dry.
Okay.
Well, there's just one line that I
Oh,
wanted to read that I thought I just love this. I thought it's just such a cool line. When Arathon's just coming over to Cura and he goes, "My victory, beloved." Arathon gasped in last salute to the enchantress who watched through the quartz sphere. Then he gathered scraped limbs and thrust to his feet. Firmly and finally he stepped across Peril's Gate. I thought that's such a cool line. Just this image of him going, "My victory, beloved," and then stepping into Peril's Gate. Like, oh, it's so good.
Title
It's one
drop.
of those, yeah,
Nice. I
very
like
nice.
that. Yeah.
such a cool line. Very cinematic.
That it is. I like it. I like it when the title is not taken in vain. Cool.
Very
Then
good.
let's do outros. Chibi-Bo, would you like to start us off?
I am still Chibi Po, and I still run, my own little Twitter where I retweet things. I need to retweet other people's stuff more often, but and I hang out on page chewing, which is still not the Peril's Gate forum. I will say, Matt, go.
I'm Matt, also known as Miggins. You can find me over on Twitter at HobbitHobbBooks. I also write reviews for Fantasy Book Critic, and you can find me lurking on the Patreon forums and then under the radar SFF Books Discord, talking about these awesome books.
Nice.
Jared.
And I'm Jared. I run a Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel and also on the Speculative Speculations podcast and other page cheering related fun stuff. Chris?
Yeah, my name's Chris Mullen, Chronicle of Chris YouTube channel, Speculative Speculations podcast, and page tune, just like many of the good books here. Just left up to you, Varsha.
And you can find me on the YouTube channel Reading by the Rainy Mountain, on the podcast Speculative Speculations, and Haunting the Page Chewing Forums. If you'd like to discuss these books with us, consider checking out the Page Chewing Forum. We meet once every 2 weeks. And if you're camera shy, you can turn your camera off like Chibi-Po, or just come talk to us on the forums, on forum threads. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.